Hello, well, welcome to the Swine Disease Reporting System. This is the report number 88 that covered the findings of May 2025. My name is Guilherme Caesar here at the SDRS studio.
Hello, my name is Ivan Chaves. I'm with the SDRS.
Hello, Daniel Linhares, also with the SDRS.
And today we're going to cover the findings, as I mentioned, of May to 2025. But before we go to the findings itself, we would like to introduce our guest today. We have the pleasure of having Janelle Hamblin here joining the SDRS podcast today. Jenelle holds a master's degree in animal science and bachelor's in microbiology from the University of Manitoba and has more than 15 years of hands-on experience in livestock management and biosecurity practices. In her current role as Director of Swine Health at Manitoba Pork, she leads efforts to monitor and improve swine health and manage disease prevention across the province. Janelle is a recognized expert in sustainable agriculture, animal health, and emergency preparedness. And today she's going to talk about the highlights of the Manitoba's approach to managing and eliminate PED from the swine farms. Welcome to the SDRS podcast, Janelle.
Thank you so much for having me.
Janelle, we're looking forward to the discussion of PED. But before we go there, Guilherme, what are the highlights for the activity of pathogens in the U.S. swine industry like PRRS virus? Seems like it's nasty now out there. What's going on?
Correct, Giovanni. PRRS virus is having a lot of activity right now in May, and which is atypical for this time of the year that usually have a decreased positivity in PRRS from May. But right now we are having above activity not only in the winter market but also in South Farm that is increasing the percentage of positive submissions. And for example, for the winter market, we still have almost 45% of positive submissions, which usually decrease to 30% at this time of the year. So a lot of activity, and our hypothesis why this is going on is mainly because two lineages that we are having a lot of activity in the field. So when we go to the sequencing part, the L1C.5, for example, double the amount of detection in specific states. Just for you to have an idea, from January 1st until April 15th, we have 560 detections of L1C.5 in Iowa. And just for April 15th until May, right now, the end of the month, we are having the double of detections, achieve almost 1,200 detections for PRRS L1C.5. And not only this specific lineage, but when we look to the L1C.2 or FLP124, that's another lineage that spiked in April. We have over 300 detections for this specific month. And for this one, when we asked the question from our advisory group, they seen that both of them are really aggressive, but the L1C.2, they see some cases that are even more aggressive than the L1C.5. So a lot of clinical outcomes in the field and a lot of mortality correlate with these two specific lineages.
So lots of things going on there, not only PCR detection, but also sequencing being done to sort out what type of virus is going on. How about PED? Any good news there?
Yeah, Jovan, not good news for PED as well. The overall detection, when we look to the whole database, it looks kind of the same for the previous month, which is okay. But when we break down the data at the regional detection, we see some specific states suffering more with PED. So Indiana, North Carolina, Oklahoma, and Iowa, for example, are having a lot of activity for PED, overall positivity coming from these specific states. So which is a concern for the industry. And also, when you look to the vehicle and truck wash category that we have in the SDRS, is also increased the positivity coming from these specific sites, which our advisory groups also said that we should enhance more biosecurity and biomanagement to avoid this spillover of PED from the truck washes and vehicles to our farms.
So lots of activity going on there too. How about Mycoplasma pneumoniae?
Yeah, for Mycoplasma, Giovanni, we are having activity in the win to finish category. We are having positivity around 20-25%, which is a little bit above the expected for this period. But when we asked to our advisory group what's normally happens to have this activity of positive cases of Mycoplasma in the win to finish sites, is that in the winter, for example, due to the poor ventilation and also the weather, it might have that the pigs that born in this specific time of the year, when they are like growing right now in this specific, in May, for example, we are having more activity of these specific peaks. But when we go to the South Farm, still good news, decreasing the positivity of Mycoplasma, and the trend of elimination from South Farm is also increasing. We have less cases of Mycoplasma coming from the South Farms.
Good news there that the Mycoplasma is going down inside farms. How about influenza and PCV2? Any updates there?
Yeah, good news as well, Giovanni. But as expected, PCV2 and influenza also in this specific time of the year, we have a decrease in positivity. So after we have a spike in April, for example, for influenza, due to this seasonality that we have for influenza, right now we are having less activity for both cell farm and winter market, and the same for PCV2 as well.
Thank you for all of those updates there, Guilherme. Janelle, as you can see, PED is still a hot topic in the US, PERS is still a hot topic. But in Manitoba, where you are based, there is a plan to eliminate PED from the swine industry. So can you explain for us how a program like this is started and what were the motivations behind such elimination program for PED?
Absolutely, that's a great place to start. Well, I'll take you back to October 2021. That was when that was the start of our last PED, large-scale PED outbreak. It's actually it's our largest outbreak to date, totaling just under 130 confirmed cases of PED, primarily in southeastern Manitoba, which we call our high-risk area for PED. So in that time frame, as our cases continued to climb through early 2022, the Manitoba Pork Board of Directors decided that something needed to be done to address PED, as the impact on producers in the sector as a whole, mentally, emotionally, financially, was just becoming way too much. So from here, the Future of PED Working Group was formed, which we now just call the PED Working Group today. And this group was very much intended to be a cross-section of the industry, to represent the industry as a whole. So we had producers, we had processors, veterinarians, our chief veterinary office here in Manitoba, as well as us at Manitoba Pork. And we were given a mandate to not only look to the future of eliminating PED, well, actually, the first mandate was deciding what we were going to do with PED. But so to look at some short-term and long-term goals. What do we want to do in the immediate? Because we were still battling a pretty intense outbreak. And then once we had that under control, what were we going to do to manage PED moving forward? So in order to do that assessment, we needed to look at what the possible strategies were to manage PED, and there's a number of them that have been looked at: elimination, running positive flows, using vaccination. So we did some digging into what information we had available. We also wanted to know what the impacts of those different strategies were going to be. Should we employ them? Being that most of our PED was in one part of the province, what we call the high-risk area of southeastern Manitoba, the rest of our province, which has still a significant portion of our production, was not impacted. So if we were to, say, let PED become endemic in the southeast, what is that going to mean for the producers in western Manitoba who don't see high levels of PED traditionally at that point, and still to this day? So we really wanted to make sure that the decisions we made for one part of the province, what the impacts were going to be for everyone else. And then, of course, a successful strategy revolves around communications. So we wanted to make sure we had proactive and consistent messaging out to our sector as we work through these stages.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing that we did was look to those different management strategies, and we worked with the Western the Western College of Veterinary Medicine to do a full lit review and also searching some of the gray literature, I'll call it as well, doing some direct interviews with veterinarians who have battled PED in very swine dense parts of the world, particularly actually in the United States Midwest, who have a similar density geographically or regionally as we do in southeastern Manitoba. And we were given, or was created, a report based on the strategies that we were asking them to review. And that was given to our PED working group for their review, and then discussion on, okay, out of all these strategies that are available for PED management, as I mentioned, running positive flows, gilt exposure, elimination, what is the best plan for Manitoba? And after a lot of discussion and going around the table in our boardroom here in Winnipeg, it was decided that PED elimination remains the best option for us here in Manitoba. So at that point, we had the what we wanted to do, but I was tasked with the how. How are we going to do it? How are we going to work through eliminating PED in Manitoba, being that we had just come off of, or at this point, actually, we're still battling the third outbreak in 5 years or so of PED in the province. So through 2022, the rest of 22, and I'll say 3/4 of 2023, working very closely with our provincial chief veterinary office, and of course, with direction from our PED working group, we created a 5-year stepwise PED elimination plan, which is an evergreen and always draft document, and we can get into that in a little bit later here. But in 2023, late 2023, our plan was presented, the elements of the plan that we developed, including stepwise reduction of overall cases over time, limiting the time that if you were to get a premise that was infected, limiting how long it was positive and therefore infectious and a risk to others in the region, enhancing our biosecurity, looking at some disease modeling work as part of the plan that's been outlined, and of course, communication and outreach to our producers and our sector and our partners. And that's still something that we take very, very seriously, and we're very happy to do. So we did implement it fully in the fall of 2023, and happy to say that also in the fall of 2023 is when that 2021-22 outbreak was declared to be over. So at the start of 2024, we were able to fully test the implementation of the action plan that we put forward. And two main components of that plan in terms of actionables are, we can kind of think of them in two different buckets: prevention of disease and then intervention. If we have, for working on preventing disease from happening in the first place, of course, that comes back to strong biosecurity practices. And then intervention, rapidly and aggressively responding should we see a case of PED confirmed in the province. So through spring of 2024, our biosecurity protocols throughout our sector were strongly reviewed and enhanced. And I can get into, that's probably a whole other podcast on some of the things that we've looked at and our veterinarians have implemented. And it's exciting to see the innovation that folks are capable of and have implemented. We've also really focused in on doing surveillance, weekly on-farm surveillance, to get ahead of PED. We all know that once you see clinical signs, it's been there for at least a couple days, and decisions to move animals, especially in the speed of which we move animals in our industry, if you can get ahead of it even by a day or two, you can make an impact on moving disease downstream. So overall, I guess I would say that collectively, the Manitoba swine industry has been the main driver of the inception of this plan to where we are now, and there's continued motivation to moving it into the future. So it's really our industry that took charge and is continuing to lead, and we've had really strong support both from the industry as well as from our provincial government. And I really think that's how we've gotten to where we are today, and what we've built is something that we can stand behind.
That's a great story. And talking about today, what's the current status of PED activity in the country? And then going forward, what do you expect?
24, we had a really successful year. We made significant progress in reducing the number of cases of PED in Manitoba. And we were so very close to getting away with no cases. But in late 2024, in December, we actually had one case confirmed, which actually was not, I mean, obviously we would have wanted none, but it did allow us to practice the intervention component of the plan. So we had written this, and being after the plan was put into place at the end of 2023, we really focused in on the prevention side of it, enhancing our biosecurity, doing regular surveillance. But this one case in 2024 really put the action behind the intervention piece, and we were able to keep that case to just one in our high-risk area. In 2025, we are at the end of May. We did have 2 cases of PED confirmed in February, or no, excuse me, in April. And those were outside of our high-risk area of PED. So southeastern Manitoba is where we've traditionally seen most of our PED. These cases that we saw were outside of that high-risk area, which really just means that the density of the swine operations is less. So we weren't seeing large numbers of swine operations surrounding the farms that did go positive. And these two farms were linked to nursery finishers. So it wasn't unexpected that those two, they actually were found at the exact same time. Again, we were actively able to implement our intervention component of our elimination plan, and to date, both of those farms have continued to work through elimination as outlined in the plan. And again, touch wood, we haven't seen any fallout cases from those two farms. So I think the intervention piece and coupled with the prevention piece, we have made some significant progress. And another strong effort that we've really implemented on top of that prevention and that intervention piece is around communication. So our producers and our veterinarians are communicating not only what they want the producers and farm staff to be doing in terms of biosecurity, but also how they want them to do it and why they want them to do it that way. Why are we doing these biosecurity protocols, and how will they help to keep our animals healthy? Really bringing it back to the people doing the job, working in the farms in the barns on the farms every day, hands-on training and explanations. And I really think this is something that has made a big difference in the success that we've had, and especially specifically 2024 and now here coming into 2025. And I hope it continues in that same direction. But it really does bring it back to the people, and the people that are coming in and off of the farms every day, and that are ones doing the work, making them essentially biosecurity champions, and giving them that, I'll say power, but it's really much the empowerment to the importance of the work that they're doing, and the fact that we've had that level of success in 2024, and I hope that we can, like I say, keep it going here into 2025. It has been motivating. It's been motivating for I think everybody in this sector. And I think communicating that, my job, part of what I do is getting that message out to not only our producers, but our industry stakeholders, our transporters, our veterinarians, our feed companies and feed truck drivers, what we've been doing, how it's been working, getting the message out of the elements of the plan, enhancing biosecurity, working with your veterinarians. It's really been a successful, I'll say, campaign, but it's knowledge exchange and an extension of the work that we're doing. And I think that's had a really had a strong impact as well. Lastly, what I'll say in terms of moving forward or looking to the future, the plan that we built was from 2022 to 2027. So we're about halfway through, and every year we've looked at and reviewed some of the successes that we've had and the lessons that we've learned. And we absolutely plan to continue to do that through 25, 26, 27.
Mm-hmm.
But looking at, depending, I guess, on how the rest of 25 goes and into 26, we're going to have to start thinking about what things look like beyond 2027, because we charted a course for this 5-year period. We wanted something to be measurable, and we didn't want to go too far into the future, not knowing what the world is going to look like in 5 years, what the industry is going to look like. So certainly the working group has been dedicated and interested in seeing this progress, our PED elimination, and there is willingness and interest in continuing those conversations. Lastly, I think what I'll say is the working group is also keen, and you mentioned it in the intro, to look at other diseases as well. Are there lessons that we've learned with PED elimination? Obviously, different diseases need to be managed in different ways. We know that. But what can we do to tackle something like influenza? Is that of interest? Do we want to go down a road where we do a more concerted regional response action plan? So those discussions are happening as well. So it's interesting, and I'm excited to see where things are going to go.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's great, Janelle. And I would like to go back a little bit in a follow-up question to the beginning about the vaccine that you mentioned, the review of literature is something that you were looking for. And my question is, we have this difference between the US and Canada, of course, but here in the US, they are claiming the importance of having a modified live virus vaccine for PED, for example, to help in this control and this elimination project. So can you elaborate a little bit about the importance of a vaccine for this project, and also like the differences between the US and Canada, what you think is necessary or not, the usage of a vaccine?
Oh, for sure. I would love access to an effective and affordable PED vaccine. I'll just start off by saying that. Here in Manitoba, we've had a few vaccines that have come and gone, but nothing that has been used widespread. There is ongoing work in this space, but we are currently in a place where we do not have access to a PED vaccine in Canada. This would be immensely helpful in boosting the immunity that we know wanes over time with a virus like PED. We would really have loved it in 2023 when we had a whole bunch of animals that had natural exposure to the virus that we could have continued to boost. That would have just been A+, but of course we did not have that. An even better scenario, I guess, for us now would be is if we had a vaccine come along that would create and maintain a strong immune response from PED naive animals. And that's not something that we've ever had access to. But if we could put that, I'd put that on my Christmas wish list every year. That was something that could come about. But in Manitoba now, especially after 2 years of actively working to eliminate PED and not having seen a lot of PED cases on farm, our immunity is waning. And of course, animals that would have had natural exposure, a lot of those animals would have been replaced, just regular production practices. You've got naive gilts that are coming into sow farms. So the immunity that we have, the regional immunity that we have for PED right now is probably as low as it's ever been, related to the past, say, decade of us battling PED. So where, in terms of where this leaves our industry, it really does leave our swine population reliant on those strong biosecurity practices that we have implemented to protect and prevent exposure to the virus. But if we were to have a vaccine available, I think that would certainly be something that our producers would be interested in learning more about. In terms of the US elimination process, I think if you were able to vaccinate your herds and maintain that immunity as you work towards a regional elimination. So and I know we've talked about this in sessions previously, that like focusing in on a region, identifying what that region is and making concerted effort, region by region. I think that would have a huge impact. And again, provide excellent protection, especially in those sow herds where we know PED can hit the hardest.
And you talked about several interesting points, right? But if you had to reflect, go back and think about what were the 3 non-negotiables, what would be your reflection there? In other words, right? If you're advising the US industry to do it, what will be the 3 non-negotiables on the table?
Oh, no pressure, guys.
Do it.
Well, at first, I think I would say really focusing in on your biosecurity. So reviewing your biosecurity, enhancing and communicating the protocols and the how, the what, the why throughout the sector. This exercise, I feel, has had tremendous value for us in Manitoba. And I think it really is the main reason for our success. As I mentioned, that our immunity is waning, and very strong effort has been put into biosecurity and prevention. I'll also say that this biosecurity review and enhancement has not only been focused on farm. We've had tremendous support from our transport companies, our service providers, our service sectors, in how they are interacting with our farms and throughout the entire value chain, our high traffic facilities, assembly yards, abattoirs, understanding the importance that biosecurity plays at each point of the value chain. And this simply hasn't happened overnight. There's been improvements year over year since we've been fighting this disease. And I think that sharing that information and working as a sector, we've seen the importance that biosecurity plays, and we've really stepped up our game. At this point, we've even seen the implementation of on-farm biosecurity software to assist our farms with practicing biosecurity protocols that are set out by their farm staff or their veterinarian. And this really just does help with, I mean, human nature. There's things that can sometimes go wrong, or people can move in a way that's maybe not in the hierarchy that they're supposed to. This biosecurity software helps with movement of people, movement of trucks, and it keeps folks where they're supposed to be, or it can get ahead of if there's a breach that has happened. So that's something that's really cool that's come down the pipe. So number one would be biosecurity. Second, I think would be surveillance. Especially on farm, we perform regular surveillance, weekly surveillance in our high risk area on most of our farms in that region. We also perform regular surveillance at our high traffic facilities, so our wash stations, our assembly yards, and our processing plants. The on-farm surveillance is at the cost of the producer. They use it as a tool to catch the virus, potentially if it's there, prior to clinical signs, if you time it right, if it all works out, getting ahead of it, and then of course lessening those impacts that you could have downstream, because we all know that animals will move disease very quickly. In terms of high traffic surveillance, like wash stations, abattoirs, processing plants, that gives us a really good indication of the disease pressure that we could be seeing. If we see something flag positive at a processing plant, well, is there something on farm that we need to trace back? It's like an early warning system that we may need to sound an alarm. So that's been helpful as well. And then I think lastly, what I would say is communication and collaboration. We've seen that when our industry came together to create this plan and to build something that in a collaborative way, and I've coined it the Manitoba Collaborative Disease Response Model. It's a mouthful, but it really does describe what we've done here. And it includes looking at information sharing agreements. So we've developed, again, another mouthful, the Manitoba Coordinated Disease Response. So it's an online platform, password protected, that producers can sign on to share their PED and PERS information. Currently, we've got our PED down pat, and we're continuing to build the PERS component. But really, it's about sharing that information openly. And again, that didn't come overnight. It was about building trust. And that is really where these outbreaks of 17, 19, 21, 22, 2017, 2019, 21, 22, again, all that experience has kind of been stepping stones to the development of this plan and the adoption of this plan that we have here in Manitoba. This is not to say that we haven't had difficult conversations. We haven't always agreed around the board table of what approach we might want to take. But ultimately, what we've created is a plan that's outcome based, and that allows for different paths to get to the same result. That's really what we wanted. No PD. That's what we want. So how are we going to do that? And of course, there's different ways to practice biosecurity on farm. And this really is dependent on your infrastructure, your flow, your production style. Like, what does that all look like? And we didn't want a one size fits all approach because we knew that wasn't going to work. So it's about that, implementing that flexibility based on the production that you have. And I think that sharing the information and learning from each other really has helped propel us forward. So I think, needless to say, I'm very proud of the work that we've done in Manitoba, and I'm for sure willing to share more about our experiences anytime. Like, we've really just scratched the surface of the work that we've done here. And as we continue to fight this battle, and as we see, I'm sure we're going to see more cases of PED pop up. But we definitely aren't taking that as defeat. It's another opportunity to practice the plan that we've implemented. And if we can have a 2025 like we had in 2024, that'll allow me to take some vacation. That'll be great. And I would be very happy to update you again once we know kind of what 2025 shakes out to be.
No, and that's awesome, Janelle. Thanks for being the podcast today. That's it, guys, for today.
Impressive.
Janelle Hamblin talk about like the PED elimination in Manitoba and a lot of tips, a lot of things that we can use as an example for the US. And I hope you guys have liked it and see you guys in the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.